highly recommend it. Neither one of us is a wine connoisseur, as it were, but we always have a nice glass.
But we enjoyed going together and relaxing and having a moment.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And this was the first time we had the addition of Willie.
Yes.
So tell me what your experience was. I was getting into it so much, Jane was like waving, let me talk, please. Well,
No,
you
I was just gonna say-
like this, even though your want would be to have a scotch if you were sitting and relaxing.
Yeah.
But you're not.
But, it's pretty good. Their Chardonnay was good, and I got you a Pinot Grigio type, and it was really, really good, actually. This was very relaxing. I think we need to go with Willie more often. He just really makes it was funny because we were sitting really close to everyone in the covered area, and finally they said, Can we pet your corgi? And so they were quite excited. And I didn't realize, that he was making such a big hit with everybody around us. So that was fun.
And also, it's from our area in Shawnee. It's a lovely drive down there.
Yes, very nice.
Very easy, right down 69 to 250th or whatever it might be out there in Lewisburg. So very, very nice. Well, on this subject, I'll let you speak more, which is last night we just happened upon a Young Frankenstein documentary, and Mel Brooks has described this as his best movie. He doesn't think it's his funniest movie. I think he thinks Blazing Saddles is his funniest movie, or maybe one or two others. But you love this movie the most of Mel Brooks's movies, and why don't you talk about it? Because it has so many things that are right down your wheelhouse, from your favorite Gene Wilder to Madeline Kahn and so on and so forth.
It's where it started was there's so many phrases that have become part of our vernacular from most of his movies, actually, but Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein for sure. And it's like, you don't realize it. And they went back sort of at the beginning and went through all of them, what knockers, and hump, what hump? There's so many things. I think, I'm not even sure what my favorite, but I think my favorite bit, which they pieced apart, which I finally was glad to hear, was Cloris Leachman and Gene Wilder doing the would someone like some milk in the night? Her accent and the way that they mirrored each other, and it was all improvised. There were brilliant moments, and a lot of those were improvised. Gene Wilder, what I find fascinating, if anybody knows his history, his mom had a bad heart condition. So the doctor told him, never overstimulate your mom with excitement. Can you imagine as a kid? So when he found theater, it was a great opportunity for him to really let it go. And when you get that take, you could get a better feeling of why Gene is the guy he is. He's just one of a kind. And he was the one that came up with this idea. And Mel fell for it, and they ended up co-writing it. And it's, the fact that they took so seriously the original version of this in black and white, and they were allowed to produce it in black and white, was a stroke of genius. And the quality of the sets, there was no faking this from a slapstick kind of comedian perspective. And then even Terry Garr, and Madeline Kahn, there's nobody better. There's just nobody better. And they knew what they were doing.
They did, and there were some things that Mel talked about, and he's prominent in this documentary, but he's not like the whole thing, far from it. But one thing he talked about was they wanted to make it really in black and white, like filmed in black and white. And I didn't really know this. A lot of times, if they'll do black and white now, then in the late 70s, they would just shoot the film in color and then just take the color out. And he said, we're not doing that. We're going to shoot this in black and white, and hell be damned. And the thing that's great about this, I don't think there's any way in the world he could have got this movie made if he hadn't just made Blazing Saddles and made all this money off Blazing Saddles. But the other thing he said that I think resonated is that the previous night, towards the end of the night, I was just slap happy or whatever, and I always keep the movie Diner in my queue. And so we just fast forward through many of the funny bits, which was fabulous as usual. And Mel said in the documentary that one of the things that's great about making a comedy is that people who've seen the film many times, they just enjoy hearing the joke again, even though they know the joke. I can say the jokes in Diner before they come up. I can say the jokes in Blazing Saddles before they start. But to see them executed again, I mean, you can do that with a dramatic movie and revisit it. I mean, I'll watch All the President's Men or whatever anytime it comes on. But it's a little different in the comedy. So anyway, I don't know when the documentary was made, but you can search it out. It's 30 minutes long, so that would probably
Well, then what I loved about it at the end, he said, Gene Wilder didn't want to leave the set when they were completely done filming. And Gene goes, don't we have another scene we can add in here so I don't have to leave the set? That tells you what a great group of people. They loved working together.
And one other note is that Gene Hackman is in this movie. He plays this character they created with a beard and everything, if you remember the movie. And Gene Hackman he sort of begged to be in the movie. And he's pretty notorious for being no fun to work with on a set, that he's uber serious.
Well, it took him 10 days to do a 2-minute scene. I wonder what that was all about. But it was based on the original character. And he was priceless. It's a priceless scene.
Right. And Mel, it reveals something a little different that you probably wouldn't think about Mel Brooks, that they said the set was the happiest you can be. But he said, we did many takes of that one scene that Gene Hackman did, and he worked for 10 days to get it right. He wanted it exactly right. Well, let's take a little time out and come back and bring you a few more tidbits, joys, and smiles on Reconcilable Differences with Danny and Jane. It's always part of Arts and Lifestyle Wednesday, presented by Cinematic Visions.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
It's always great to get an update from Dr. Brad Woodall from Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture, 8 locations all around Kansas City, including the newest one in Raytown.
We are very excited to join the Raytown community. We just took over for Dr. David Frey, who retired and has then shared all of his patients with us to take great care of.
They do it all year round, and that means in the fall as well, when people get back to raking leaves and participating in fall sports, all those kinds of things, right?
Back to school means back for fun. Full backpack, we can help as your chiropractor. If you're starting fall sports, we want to make sure you have that physical, and we want to make sure you're in great shape. And if injuries happen, we've got your back.
And you've got it all around Kansas City at 8 different locations for Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. Visit asfca.com/Danny. That's asfca.com/Danny. We're here at the 23rd Street Brewery with Matt Llewellyn. And Matt, you've got a great menu. You fine-tuned it a little bit. Great beers. There's always something to be had to put a smile on your face at the 23rd Street Brewery.
Oh, you bet. And Brian Haney would always say, come have the Haney turkey stack. Bill Self would say, come have the Bill Self pasta. I would say, come have the Bill Self pasta. It's great. Great mac and cheese, buffalo mac and cheese. And we've got a ton of other menu items that you're sure to love. We've got a great brewer who's brewing great beer. And if you like craft beer, our guy's the way to go. And we're making great drinks, too. There's a great new distillery in the state of Kansas called Llewellyn Distillery. My brother's doing that. He makes some great whiskey and vodka and rum, and we're doing all kinds of great drinks with those beverages.
Always fun to be had at the 23rd Street Brewery, 23rd and Castle. Come on by anytime and have a good time.
If you'd like to join these and other fine sponsors and market your business on Kansas City's #1 rated podcast, contact us at Danny@DannyKlinkscale.com. Look forward to working with you.
The busy lady who sits across from me on this particular podcast, Jane Siemens of Venice Communications, in many different ways also gets involved with so many different things, including now being a board member for the Youth Chorus of Kansas City. And they are doing many remarkable things and do a lot for bringing underprivileged youth into the chorus. And one of the things that they need, and they have a fantastic upcoming journey to Carnegie Hall next year. But one thing they're in need of right now is transportation for some of the people who need to get to practice and rehearsal.
Yeah, I'm just putting a shout out if anybody might know of something. We have kids that don't have access to transportation to and from our rehearsals on Mondays. As well as the performances. These are kids who might not have a family with cars, but they're great singers. And this group is working with kids all over the region to get them in these amazing choirs from second grade all the way to 18. And they are so good that they're going to Carnegie Hall next year. They're singing all over the community. So if anybody by chance knows of a van for 12 to 15 kids, that we could maybe rent or, borrow for a year or just for the season, my God, that'd be fantastic. Or any ideas, please let us know.
You can reach me at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. And if you have any ideas on this or leads, or you're a dealership that would like to, there's a lot of promotion that would be involved. Not that you probably just would do it because you're a good-hearted person, but...
oh, yeah, sponsorships. If you did this or knew somebody who did it, tell them, they would be really well, focused on, will be a sponsor and get their name out everywhere.
And there's galas and such, and they would be in the program.
They sing at the Chiefs game. They're singing at KC Current on September. So your name would be everywhere.
So that would be a cool thing and a good way to do some good work in the community. And we've heard through speaking and other things in Kansas City and responses yesterday, for instance, at the speaking engagement about how important the arts are to any community and building that community into a real thriving city, which can do things like draw the World Cup here, which wouldn't happen if it wasn't a thriving community.
That's right.
Something that you may not know, and maybe you've heard some anecdotes because of The Wizard of Oz or whatever, but probably everybody listening over the age of about anything, and maybe young people too, know about the Beverly Hillbillies, either through repeats or something. And the head of that family was one Jed Clampett, and to me, he was hysterically funny on that show. It's not the greatest show, but sometimes during my ill-spent youth, a bunch of us would get together and watch the Beverly Hillbillies and just think it was funny, goofy fun. But he was just fun because he wasn't really supposed to be funny, just sit there whittling and say make occasional comments. Anyway. Buddy Ebsen, of course, is the man who plays him, and he was Barnaby Jones, a detective in his later years, whatever. But what he started out with was a dancer, and he was a song and dance man, and he actually had a vaudeville act with his sister originally. But if you go back, and we've recently watched some of some 30s musicals, including the Broadway Melody ones, there's a 36, there's a 38, there's a 40, 1936, 38, 40. And Buddy Ebsen is in a couple of those, and he is just the most amazing rubber band dancer you've ever seen.
Absolutely endearing, fascinating to watch. You can't take your eyes off him. No matter who is on the stage, even his female partner, which most people's eyes go to, you're watching Buddy. Because one critic put it, he's a surreal kind of jazz dancer. And he's a tap dancer, but everything in his body is liquid. And
Yes.
He's so tall and he looks like he's having so much fun. And if you look at his face, I think he must have like a slower heart rate or something. He's got this thing about him. Like he comes on the set and it just changes the atmosphere. I'm in love with him when he was young. Everyone go back. Forget what you think you know about Buddy. Go back and watch these early films.
You can YouTube these things. And
Yes.
Buddy Ebsen in Broadway Melody, if you just did that, you'd be able to find it. He clearly could easily break dance. And do anything like that back
He was almost
in the day.
moonwalking at moments.
Right, absolutely moonwalking, and his arms it's almost like he doesn't have elbows or knees.
I know. Well, and you could see why they wanted him for the Scarecrow, by the way. And then they gave him the Tin Man, and then he got really ill with the paint. So that kind of derailed a certain part of his career. But
because he would have been the Tin Man.
He would have been the Tin Man.
Right.
Just a fascinating, anyway.
He wanted to be the
Can't say enough.
Scarecrow.
Yeah. But he said it was okay.
Right.
He gave it. He goes, Bolger wanted it, and he goes, that's okay, I'll do the Tin Man. And then look what happened. Poor guy.
Of course, and now you can't even imagine anybody else as any of these characters, but I think Buddy Ebsen would have been fantastic. So if you want to look back on that, that's really fun. Those movies are fun. Musicals aren't for everyone, but they're...
Well, what's neat is I went back, he's had 7 children. He built boats. He does all this other stuff. Like he's got quite an interesting background. I mean, I know that doesn't...
Because he had fallow periods in his career, and he branched out and did other things.
He invested.
Right, and he did... He had a shipbuilding business and all kinds of
fascinating
amazing things. In his later years, however, it was funny that I saw this anecdote. Nancy Culp, who was Miss Hathaway, the little mouse on the secretary to, I forget the man's name, who was the business owner. She was a radically liberal person. And Buddy Ebsen is a very conservative man.
I'm sure
and
that would have
apparently
been.
their set was volatile because they
I
were
bet.
having political arguments all the time
Oh, my
between
God.
Miss Hathaway and Jed Clampett.
Well, here's another one. Meriwether